Well, here we are, making probably one of the most important portions of your airplane. The table from which all things will be measured. Your first and most important jig. We've acquired two relatively expensive pieces of Douglas fir. They are 1 by 10, 1 by 11, 1 by 12, as mentioned in your plans. They need to be as straight as you can buy them. If you can't get them straight, then you have to figure out some way of making them straight. And they only need to really be straight on one edge. We've hand-planed this one. And we fought it for the last hour and a half. We've spared you that experience. But we're going to show you how to get your other edge straight with a router. Pretty simple. Give me a close-up, Rick. We have a tracer blade here. We're not going to use the pilot on. We're going to pick one edge that is relatively clean. Cutting face against the edge of the piece of wood that you wish to cut. And then we're going to move the piece of wood that is straight already, that's our guide, we're going to move it right up against this reference edge of the router. We're going to come down here and check to make sure that we're on. We're not precisely, but we're close. You should hit them both at the same time. There we go. Tighten this end up. Now I'm going to go down to the opposite end and check to see that I have exactly the same parallel condition. Take the edge of the blade at its most prominent point, move it up against the router. Clamp it in this position. Check it again. Do this without your router being plugged in. Very close. Contact. The router is off. Plug it in. Check the router. Make sure the base is locked in. And we're off and running. We don't want to do a climbing cut, so we'll start from this end. If this is straight, this is straight. And if it's not, at least they're parallel. And we nailed it. We've already shown you how to make one of your two 12-footers die straight, providing, of course, that the other one was already straight. The lumber in this case is 12 foot in length. It must be 12 foot in length. It needs to be at least a 1 by 10. We're advising 1 by 12s. If you have to, 1 by 14s are acceptable. They're actually 3/4 of an inch thick for those of you who are new to the lumber game. You also need 7 pieces, 46.5 inches in length, of the same width stock, whichever you choose to use. You need a box of number 8 nails. You need a bottle of glue. White glue will do, aliphatic resin, Elmer's, a hammer, a square, 2 sheets of 4 by 8 plywood. We're using a very high quality grade material because we're going to build a lot of wings. Apply glue to the edges. This is where you can first verify that you have material that is the same thickness. First nail is the hardest. Three nails for intersection, more than sufficient. This is the straight edge that we made sure was milled. If you have a lumber company in the area that can use a joiner on one edge, it sure makes life simple. We're going to nail this end on, and we'll be back with you in a moment. The next dimension that we established is 48 inches. Oops, 49 inches. There's 48. Same thing from the opposite side. 48 inches. And we're going to measure 48 inches from the other side. We want the sheet, if it's a full sheet, we want it to fall on the center of our cross members. The bottom sheet, we want to fall on the center of the opposite cross member. Actually, these dimensions should be done from one end. And I'm going to verify that I have 96 inches dimensions from here. We have 96 to this dimension. Now I'm going to verify that on the opposite side. You need to be aware of which direction you go. 96, verified to this position. That is the center of your 3/4 inch member. We're going to use a square to establish position of these members. If you have a pretty good eye, you can see 3/8 of an inch on either side of your center line. Absolute precision is not necessary here, but this is a good beginning. We'll grab a handful of nails and we'll pre-nail these positions, centering up. You can look right down from the opposite side and see if you're between lines. We're going to get back to you in a moment. We need to show you all of this, but this is the basic gist of it. When we next come back to you, all of our cross members will be in place, and we'll show you how to nail the lid on. Okay, intermediate members are in place. Their position is important. These are much less important, but you should know exactly where they are. So when you go to do your nail line across your caps, you'll be able to see it easily. So we're going to go 24, precisely 24 on the outside, marked on the outside, plainly visible, 24, 24, 48, and we're going to go 72, marked heavily on the outside, 72 on the outside. Now we're going to put cross members into each of those places. I'll mark the center line with a square. Back to you in a moment. For those of you who are more obsessive than most, you might want to mark a line, two lines, 3/4 of an inch apart where you're actually going to put your glue. Well, I've already got a center line on the outside for nails, and that center line was for nailing down as well. So we're going to get our glue in place. Our cross member. I'm going to spread it a little bit with my feet so I don't wipe the glue off in the process. And we're going to let it come back in again. 3 nails, a hammer, center line. Bring it up to flush on the top. Flush. I go to the opposite side. Bring it up to flush. We're absolutely certain that that is the case. Nail on center line. Put this between the lines. Establish center lines. Establish. We'll do that in the last 2 bays, and then we'll put the lid on. Okay, what we're going to do now, we're going to take a lid, and we're going to check and see how the fit is, make sure that it falls onto the middle of one of these cross members. And also, this is where we're going to set everything square. Check this corner. Check this corner. We're spot on. For the right width. And we're falling right down the center of one of our cross members. Exactly the way we had determined that was to be done. So now we're going to lift it off, put the glue down, and we'll be back to show you nailing down the lid. Now we got the glue on. Healthy bead right down the center. We're going to pick this up, we're going to set it down to one corner, and on one edge, before we lay it down, bring it back to you just a taste. Flush on this end, flush on the corner. Down. Okay, this way we push as little glue as possible off of the surfaces. Now before I pick up my hammer, I'm going to clean the glue off my hands. We're going to nail down the lid. These are number 8s. Number 6s will probably do just fine for this application. We're nailing into the edge of 3/4 inch thick Douglas fir that's kiln dried, and it'll probably crack on you if you go number 8. So we've been fortunate in that none of these ends have cracked when we nailed into the sides of these pieces. We're just a little off square at this point, so I'm going to tap this edge back. Flush and square on the edges. Richard, would you be so kind as to wipe the glue off that I'm squishing out all over the place? Don't nail directly on your corners. The nails that are coming in from the ends protrude about that distance. If you nail directly over the corner, you'll hit your nail. How's it on your side, Richard?
Touch in.
They touch in? Okay. Hold the lid and push toward me. Okay, now I'm flush on this side. And we're still good right here.
Touch out, but it's less than 30 seconds.
Okay. It's nice to have one edge of your jig table absolutely flush with your edge. You can use this as a reference surface. The glue is doing 99% of the work. The nails are here to provide the gluing pressure. Now we're going to mark down our cross members, find a convenient straight edge / sanding bar. Which edge are you on? Let's show the builder. Okay, center line here. Next, nail center line. Right on the middle of your nail line. Got it? Feels so good. You hit it right. Am I going to run out of nails? Richard, would you give me some more nails out of the bathroom we're renovating? No more nails. Okay, now that you're sitting on the center of a piece of wood that's 3/4 of an inch in width, you come out about 3/8 right about the edge, but you angle in diagonally. Definitely tell we picked up the edge of the wood and we have attachment. Now we've discovered that we've run out of every kind of nail but finished nails. But as I mentioned before, the nails are only here for glue pressure. That nail felt like it missed. So we're going to go again. That one did not miss. Nor did that one. We're going to cut a half sheet of plywood, set it on the end, nail it down, just like we did these sheets. Then we're going to nail a 1/4 inch sheet of plywood on the opposite side. We'll show you that process and what will prevent your table from twisting in its application. Until that 1/4 inch sheet of plywood goes on, the table will be a twisty, flexy kind of thing. It won't bend, but it will twist until we get the 1/4 inch on. We'll show you how that process. Test sound. Okay. Now what we're going to do is flip this thing over for you. Lid is nailed on. I'm going to attempt to lift it. I want to show you something at this stage. Very floppy. We have a few places where these planks are larger than their adjacent cousins. We're pretty good in most places. We're under here. This isn't going to be a problem. So we want to take a plane and knock these corners off so they don't exceed the surfaces too much. The real important portion of this is the relationship of the lid to the side to the upper surface of the cross members, and that it be square and that one side be straight, and that it be flat and not twisted. We'll accomplish this next phase by taking two sawhorses, putting them about 1/3 of the way in from that end, 1/3 of the way in from this end, stepping far enough back from them so that you can sight the two surfaces to be certain that the two of them are absolutely parallel. You can establish a better relationship of the two surfaces by eye than you can with a level. So we'll be doing that for you in a moment. We're going to flip this over, put it on those sawhorses, and nail the lid on the bottom. We want this table to be as flat as we can on both surfaces. We don't want to impart any twisting loads to it. So we've shaved off these bottom members to as flat as we can get them. We're sitting right on the surface here. We're a little high there. We're close enough there. Let me check the other. We're high here. We'll repeat this process and a little along here. This one's just right. This one's a little high on this end. And this one's right on the money. So we've got a little more plating to do. The resultant accuracy derived from our double template method in the wing has driven the need for accuracy further and further, as exemplified by a jig table that we've gone to great lengths to make sure it doesn't change shape in the future. I don't know if the camera can see it at this point, but the interior of the lid, the top of this, has been coated with epoxy. You can use varathane, you can use anything you want, but the two sides of this upper deck should be sealed. And if you seal it, make sure that you seal it with like materials. You don't want to seal it with epoxy on one side, varathane on another. The new varathanes that are available are water-based and can cause shrinkage and warpage of your upper lid. We used a high-quality plywood for this upper surface, and so we've gone to some lengths to protect it. There's about 18 to 20 shots of West resin on the surface. You don't have to coat the rest of the interior, but we do recommend that you coat at least the under and upper surface of that 3/4 inch plywood, or if you use particle board, seal those surfaces as well. The next thing that we have to do, and one of the important things to do, is to make sure that this is not going to twist. I may have shown you what that looks like in its present condition, but I'm going to show you that presently it is very flexible, torsionally. This condition will disappear as soon, I'm going to twist it again, look right down the top. Very, very flexible. To ensure that it doesn't twist on us, we finish off the bottom surface with a layer of 1/4 inch plywood. Take an extrusion, take something straight, and place it on one end. At the opposite end, you need at least enough space where your ability to focus on one end or the other is not impeded by being too close to this surface. So I get down against the wall, I put my head against the wall and fix this focal point. I'm seeing this front plane of plywood, and I line this edge up with the opposite edge. When I see both surfaces, and see when they both disappear at the same moment, then I have a perfect parallel. Right now I can see that back corner of the extrusion. I know I'm not high enough, so I'm going to shim it up a little higher on this corner. Richard's going to hand me the camera, and I'm hoping that we can get the focus in this thing to work right. Get it. Routine here. Okay, so what I was saying, to see is, that's what we want you to see, that the two surfaces disappear at the same time. It looks like it might be a taste high on the left side in the opposing edge, but it looks pretty straight. Now I've got our last sheet on. Cross members. Prefer to hit them when we nail. I don't see it on the top.
It's okay, I'm lined up.
There's a pencil mark on the top. See the pencil mark? On the edge, on the top surface.
Here?
Top surface. Of the dug fur.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was lined up.
Right there, okay. Don't want to miss it. The big vertical lines on the outside didn't necessarily correspond to... I haven't got one there either, do I? So as to avoid warping, we nail the middle of the sheet first. We work our way out. Actually, to be absolutely accurate, I should have started from here. Worked one right, one left, one right, one left. So I don't collect imperfections and exaggerate them. Now I work out. I hate to admit it, but I used to be a drywaller by profession. I guess in every carpenter's life a little rain must fall. You at least learn how to flip nails. While your other hand is doing something else. We've given you enough footage of this to show you how it goes. We're going to do the same thing on this opposite end. Nail it down. We're on the middle of a rib here, so we're nailing right diagonally to the edge like we did on the top side. And we'll be back to you to show you how to coat the top side, the last process in making your jig table. Thank you very much.
That was the time.
For those of you who have had your hernias repaired, it's time for reinstatement. We're going to flip this thing over. Richard, are you sure that you want this embarrassment on tape? It won't be light.
Actually, what I'd like to do is move it halfway. I want to get a close-up of hands footing the table. I'm going to put the rest of the way and do that. I know you know why, and I will explain, but it's
There we go.
all right.
That doesn't feel that heavy. Ready? Maybe the body's on your end. Come on, let's go. You still on?
Okay, just grab this table at the top.
This is 7 shots of West Systems resin. This is not an imperative. It's something you don't have to do. We're going to coat down the middle first so we don't end up wetting our front of our pants. Do seal your surfaces. This doesn't have to be done with epoxy. Your wing jigs. We start out with high quality 1/2-inch plywood. Set your table saw 13 inches in width and cut a 4x8 sheet of 1/2-inch thick plywood into 13-inch strips. After doing so, check to be certain that your edges are straight and that they're perpendicular on at least one end. Check your plans for references indicating the correct length for the appropriate template. This is the mid-span airfoil. It's the BL 106.25. Cut your plywood, this particular piece of plywood, to 39 5/16 in length. Again, being sure that both ends of your plywood are perpendicular to the bottom edge. Right, review. 13 inches in width, perpendicular. Now we mark up from the bottom 5 inches. Be as precise as you can. The opposing end. Five inches. On all of your lengths, this is your first reference, a 5-inch line measured from one edge, paralleling this reference edge. Your next reference, also at the trailing edge, is 4 inches. Next reference is approximately mid-span on the airfoil. From the trailing edge to here is 18.5 inches. Drawn perpendicular from the bottom reference. You'll be making a bandsaw cut along that line. You'll be making a bandsaw cut along your 5-inch reference line through here. And you'll be making a cut through the forward section of the airfoil along the leading edge center line. Now we haven't laid that out yet, so I'll show you the next step. To take the appropriate airfoil, your reference here is trailing edge cut line, the actual TE, as well as the trailing edge center line. Place those two converging points on your two reference lines. The horizontal line at 5 inches up, the vertical line at 4 inches from the outboard from the aft end. Then you come to the leading edge. Sorry for the jerkiness. I'm the cameraman today. And you have a leading edge center line. For the sake of reference, that line is 4 and approximately 3/4 of an inch up. You can mark it at center line, bring it out to here, mark it again. You'll be cutting along this line. Again, put the trailing edge reference center line, vertical line in place. Place the trailing edge reference line or the water line along this 5-inch line. And then mark the perimeter. Hold it firmly in place. Mark entirely around the perimeter. Don't let your airfoil move. You're going to be attempting to cut half of this line away. And leaving a portion of the line behind. This jig fits very closely to your wing. This is the template that you use to bar sand down to your foam cores. So the result will be that this jig will fit very, very closely to your foam cores. When you cut this airfoil, you'll come in from the trailing edge. You'll cut forward and then go along the bottom line, cutting half the line away. And you can cut up beyond this point, parallel this line. You can come back in here and cut this edge later. Come on across. This edge actually here will be removed. My memory is slipping. With the assistance of one of my co-workers, I could take a spline across this and flex this in to match perfectly, but I can hand do this. It's better that it be a little large here than a little small. So we'll bring this in. What we've done is hand draw across the spark cap depressions. You freehand this in across here on both edges. You bandsaw directly across this. Cutting all the way. Your bandsaw may not make this round cut, so you can come in closer to the center and then cut right down the center line leading edge, right down the middle, right down the center of the line, attempting to remove the entire line as you make your cut. Now you remove the bottom section from the upper section. You can go ahead and do the final trim, removing this line, sanding directly to the line and removing half of it. After you've made this cut, then you can come back to the center line and cut right down the center of this vertical line. You can at that time also take this upper section, cut this center line in place, cut this section free, cut the aft section free, and when you're finished, you'll end up with a jig that looks very similar to this one. This one's been modified slightly. You have the new improved version. The portions are set up so that they fit together exactly as they were prior to cutting apart. We cut 8 pieces of 2-inch wide birch plywood, high quality material, 10 inches in length, make them 9 3/4 of an inch in length. And the bottom portion of the jig, the bottom forward portion, has the plywood bonded to the lower section, here and here. The aft section is bonded, only has one pair bonded in place. After the bonding is done and clamping, then match drilling through and attaching with T-nuts on the opposite side, or just nuts and washers would be sufficient. And this is the relationship of the parts. The cutout you see here to my right is an optional cutout for the use of, not optional, it will be cut in place for a 2-inch by 1-inch aluminum extrusion that we bond to the trailing edge of the leg, so that we can effectively make the trailing edge of the wing dead straight. We cut this, we come forward of the trailing edge trim line 1/4 of an inch. And from that reference point, we go aft 1 1/4 inches. We measure down 2 1/4 inches. I can reproduce all this here. 4 1/4, 4 1/4. Don't mind me, folks, I'm making these up as I go. This area will be removed. It's oversized, so that if you do decide to vacuum bag your wing, which will be explained in another videotape, then you have plenty of latitudes to drop your aluminum extrusion in place and bond to the last portion of your trailing edge. In brief review, let me pan backwards here. We have at the trailing edge, looking at the trailing edge, a sheet of plywood that's 1/2 inch thick that is 13 inches wide. This edge is perpendicular to both faces. This particular piece of plywood is 39 5/16 in length. Next reference, measured 5 inches from this edge on both ends, and a parallel line 5 inches from this edge. Aft edge reference, we measure forward 4 inches, draw a perpendicular line from this edge, paralleling this edge. Next reference, a perpendicular line 18.5 inches from the trailing edge of this sheet, perpendicular to this face. Next reference, place the airfoil template, center trailing edge line, trailing edge reference, on the vertical and horizontal reference line. Placing that same reference line on the template at the forward section of the template. That would be the upper line in this particular case. Take nothing for granted. Don't assume anything. Make sure that all your references have been confirmed and are correct. Last reference is the tracing around the template, and then either splining in, I'll explain that, splining in this shape, like so, and having someone draw it while you hold it, or freehanding it. Freehanding will be fine, providing that the curvature of this line is outside the actual dimension. Better to have a gap here than have it impinge into the surface, because eventually this jig will go into place when this trough on the wing has been filled with carbon fiber, and you don't want it to impinge on your wing. There is one more minor reference. The leading edge needs to be relieved in such a fashion that one can laminate a lap around the leading edge of the wing. So what we do is we measure aft along the waterline 2 1/4 inches from this point to here. And we measure forward 1 inch. I'm going to take a standard mixing cup, place it on these lines, a little below center line. You can make a mark here if you want. We can actually tell you what that reference line is. It's 1 5/8 of an inch. Oh, wait a minute. No? It's 1 7/8 of an inch. Come down to that line, come down to this reference point here, and draw a circle. The cut that will occur will run from here that will get cut out. All of this. This will allow you to lap glass around the leading edge upper surface onto the lower edge surface, which is the first surface to get glassed. Now we just completed the cut, removing the center portion. Give you a look at the leading edge section here. The line remaining is your 5-inch reference line from the edge. The center line cut was the leading edge center line. Spark cap depressions were removed. There's your trailing edge reference, since we didn't go beyond the edge. We haven't cut into the depression for the 2-inch by 1-inch extrusion yet. And we have not cut through this center line. Bandsaw doesn't have a deep enough throat. We're going to use strangely enough, a hacksaw blade to cut that, because we don't want tolerance increases when we remove material. It's slightly different in size, but you'll find your foam a flexible enough medium where this will be of no concern whatsoever. What we're going to show you this time is how to bond your 1/4-inch plywood sections to your jig. We'll start off at the bottom. Straight edge, take your jig. There's your cut line from the original. So straight edge on the table. Push the 2 jig sections against your straight edge. Couple of nails. Just lightly into the table. And what you don't want to do is you don't want the nails to get into the way of where your plywood's going to go, so don't put them in the area where your bonding is going to occur. Now the important one is to make sure that this jig and this jig are in the correct relationship. We're still good. Now we go to the top. Line the back end up at the trailing edge. Line the front edge up. Bring your wood in. You got a line up here. Have a line up here, and you got a straight edge here. Can't go wrong. Check again. Check again. Now this is the exact relationship that it had prior to cutting it out, except minus the thickness of the saw blades. And we've got a little mismatch right here. I'll give it a bounce there. Straight. Straight. Things like this little groove or a bondo on your straight edge can ruin your whole day. Make sure you're using a straight reference.